All right. Good morning. It's been awesome conversations thus far, and we have the privilege to talk about pathways to prosperity. And so really what we're going to talk about today is as we approach our state continuing to grow, the opportunities we're generating in our communities, how do we connect the people with the opportunities and the pathways to get there? And so we're excited to talk a little bit about how we do that, how we connect with our untapped talent pipelines, whether that is military, whether that is justice involved, whether that is marginalized communities, and how do we apply that across multiple sectors, whether that is big business or small business or diverse-owned businesses. So I'm excited to have this conversation. I'm going to start here with Antrell. Will you introduce yourself and your company just real briefly?
Great. Can you all hear me? Right. So my name is Antrell Tyson, and I'm the Senior Policy Advisor for Paramount Consulting Group. We're a bicameral, nonpartisan government affairs and public affairs firm here in the city of Atlanta. Prior to joining the firm, I served as Regional Director for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and also the Director of Business Services for the Atlanta Workforce Authority.
Great. Amber.
Good morning. My name is Amber King, and I have the honor and pleasure of serving for Advocate Atrium Health Navicent in Macon, Georgia. I've been with the organization for about 10 years and healthcare for about 20. And I just want to send a special call out of thank you to Madam President for having that extra child because we only had 2. So we have 1 girl, 1 boy, and also a thank you to Aaron. I now know what direction we need to send our troublemaking son into is Microsoft. So thank you.
Good morning, everybody. My name is John Hancock. I'm with Junior Achievement. I'm going to assume that some of you know about Junior Achievement. We are an independent 501c3 nonprofit organization that works in partnership with school systems and businesses to bring a variety of programs and experiences to middle school and high school students. We have operations in various places around the state of Georgia. About 125,000 young people will participate in our programs this school year. And I don't know how long I'm going to get to say this, so I'm going to say it. We're a part of a large national an international organization, Junior Achievement Worldwide, which is the umbrella organization under which all of us across the globe operate, 4 years in a row nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for our ability to bring economic empowerment and mobility to, as the nominator said, the youth of the world.
Awesome. Thank you. So as we start the conversation, just want the audience to keep in mind that we're really going to talk about the hows today. How do we connect and bring some tangible outcomes in ways that we can move people into prosperity. So, Antrell, when you think about pathways to prosperity, what does equitable economic growth look like in practice? And how can employers make a stronger role in making that for all Georgians?
Great. So I'll start with the pathways to prosperity piece. I think what that looks like in practice is allowing for every Georgian to have an opportunity to be able to contribute to the Georgia economy, whether that's through work or entrepreneurship. So making sure that there are tools and training in place to make sure that people, no matter what their background is, where they live geographically, have access to be a part of what that means. And equitable growth, I just go ahead and just kind of address the elephant in the room. We know that, equality and equitable, any of those DEI terms are getting a bad name or rap for themselves, but I'll quote good friend John Hope Bryant that equity is not charity. Equity is a strategy.
That's right.
And so if business leaders think about having an equitable and diverse and inclusive workforce, you really are able to untap the full workforce opportunity here in Georgia. So if you marry the two, if you think about making sure that there's a pathway for any individual in Georgia to be able to contribute in the Georgia economy and having employers have on-ramps on to making sure that anybody, regardless of their background and their geographic location, you can have a Georgia that continues to rise together and everybody has a contributing part to it.
Yeah, for sure. So how does that play into, what are some workforce initiatives or entrepreneurship support so that we can develop better pipelines into small businesses as part of that growth?
Still me or?
Still you.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think, and I've heard a lot of it being talked about earlier today, just kind of broadening what it means to be a qualified employee, right? Broadening those things, not focusing on credentials, but certifications I think is going to be a growing part of our future, but looking less toward as to, okay, what 4-year degree do you have, but matching skills with what actually needs to be done by the job. By forcing employers, unfortunately you all, to really define what is required of each job and being able to identify candidates who meet those needs. Secondly, I think that, when we talk about training is always good, but it only can do so much, right? You can ask for people, and from my workforce background, one, it's tough to ask people to sit in a room and be trained through the traditional means, right? For sure. Unless there's a work-based training element to that. And so business leaders can create those partnerships with technical college systems, workforce boards, to say, hey, we know that you're engaging with the workforce that are eager to work, that want to learn practical skills. I can, you can send someone to me to work 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week, whatever your need is, so they can get on-the-job training as well. And a lot of these workforce boards, especially here in Georgia, will actually pay for the trainee to work on your job site for free. So being able to take advantage of those partnership opportunities to have that stepping, that ladder to be able to step into the real world, I think is where we can kind of get into some of those untapped markets. And then, as you mentioned too, not to take up all the time, there are also veterans who have an issue with translating their actual capabilities to civilian life and civilian work. So we can do a lot more in making sure that that workforce population can translate what their actual skills are into what us as civilians can interpret as a viable candidate.
No, I love what you said there. It really starts with industry being very painstakingly clear on what the need is. And I don't know, and I speak for industry at Georgia Power, that we don't always do the best job of that. And so without that clarity, it's really hard to move into pockets of talent and generate opportunities that we haven't in the past. So Amber, I kind of want to kick it to you as we get in this conversation about untapped talent pipelines. Many industries are struggling to fill roles, yet there's plenty of qualified workers overlooked. So what are some of the strategies that you found effective to tapping into underrepresented groups, such as the veterans, justice-involved individuals, or those without traditional credentials?
Thank you. Love the question. So we have several different programs at Advocate Atrium Health Navicent. One that I would say, first of all, relationships and partnerships are key. So from a relationship standpoint, we encourage all of our teammates to be engaged in the community. And veterans are close to my heart. I have several veterans in my family, and of course Veterans Day was yesterday. So being involved in organizations, personally involved in Team RWB, which is a national organization, VFW, things of those natures, where our teammates are forming those relationships and encouraging others to join our workforce, knowing that they have a battle buddy to go to work with, so to speak. Secondly, I would say from a veteran perspective, to your point around creating an opportunity where active duty service members are having an opportunity. We just launched, hot off the press, launched this yesterday, where we are partnering with Warner Robins Air Force Base in Warner Robins, Georgia, with the airmen and the medical units that are going to be coming to Atrium Health Navicent to review our critical care, our trauma services. So they're getting hands-on civilian experience that we can then share best practices with as well, because our civilian physicians, clinicians are also learning from these individuals. And so while they're still active duty, we're still introducing them to the civilian workforce. So that's kind of from the veteran perspective. We also have some opportunities to get students interested in healthcare early and often. So we have a program called REACH, which reaches out to our high school students, and this gives them the opportunity, and one of the things I share with students is it's equally important to know what you don't want to do as it is of what you do want to do. So oftentimes when we go to the students or we go to the education facilities, we'll mention healthcare, and immediately they think doctor, nurse. They had no idea that there's accounting and finance and HR. Great place. So introducing them to the broad range of opportunities, and then allowing them to do an internship so they can see hands-on what that experience is like. And then lastly, to your point around those that are justice-involved individuals, we do have a program called Fair Chance Hiring that is specifically geared towards that group of individuals.
Good. We're going to come back to that. John, anything you would like to add on some strategies really moving into some of these untapped talent pipelines?
Yeah, Amber mentioned early and often. I would echo in our work, early, often, broadly, and experientially. And without getting into the weeds on all the programs and products that we run, that is germane to who we are. I always tell people that our organization is probably pretty simple relative to a lot of big businesses and certainly relative to school systems, which are by their nature very complex, and that's who we are in service to. But we're really good at a limited number of things in experiential education, where we begin to blur the lines between school, even like younger school, not just high school, and the workplace and higher education. We're doing a great job of making that as messy as we can, because this day and age where we sort of drew clear lines that you went to elementary school and then you went to middle school and then you went to, like, those days are over, and we're in the thick of again, trying to make that as messy as possible, because good things come out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, the optionality that's available now, I think we have to really incorporate into the different audiences, right? And I think I love to hear you doing that. Amber, I want to come back to you and specifically talk about Atrium Health has been recognized for creating pathways back into the workforce through its second chance hiring initiatives, as you mentioned. So can you expand a little bit more around some of the lessons learned from integrating justice-involved individuals into your workforce, and also how these efforts have strengthened both your organizations and the communities you serve?
Thank you. So super excited to share about the Fair Chance Hiring Program. First, I would just start off with, it's more than just employment. We are having the opportunity to impact individuals on a personal level, that these individuals who have successfully completed the program and have joined our organization actually recoined the program to second chance. And often they say, you've given me a second chance. You've given my family a second chance. You've given our community an opportunity to grow by giving me a chance. And that really just resonates. It really strikes my why in investing in others. And so I think what's most important in lessons learned around this particular initiative is understanding the need to have very clear expectations as well as a structured program. And so as a part of that structured program, we have our pre-boarding, which we partner with community organizations that help with those soft skills. So conflict resolution, learning how to do your finances, being able to also provide wraparound services. So thinking about the teammate as their whole self, being able to share like transportation. We have lift tickets, 4 of those that are provided. We also have Food as Medicine, or our Help Now program, where those individuals can not be burdened as they're starting their career with us, and other opportunities for whether it be financial assistance or otherwise. So having those clear expectations, the clear pre-boarding, and just as much as the onboarding experience, and trying to not create too many opportunities where there's change, so keeping things consistent. And as a part of that, we have a mentorship, we have a buddy program, and I guess finally the last lesson learned is that those things are not just needed for the justice-involved individuals.
That's right.
It's needed for everyone. And explicitly in our lower bracket income vocations, and so we are offering the Help Now services for that entire population.
Yeah. So, you know, we've done a tremendous amount of work with the justice involved, and I think I would love to know your experience of, this is a truly untapped pipeline, right? Some of the individuals that we have worked with become the best employees. Have you had a very similar experience?
We have, absolutely. So our first cohort graduated with 10 individuals. 9 of them are still at our organization. We did have 1 leave to a better opportunity. And then also, several of them have been nominated and chosen, selected as Employee of the Month or Teammate of the Month. And then lastly, out of the 10, the one that transitioned, but the remaining 8, they are interviewing currently for further opportunities within the organization.
Why do you think they make such great employees and have generated, promotional opportunities?
I really have found that these individuals have locked into and appreciated someone investing in them. And the sense of, I want to invest in someone else, really resonates with, again, not just other individuals like them in those situations, but with the entire workforce.
Yeah, great. Awesome. Yeah, I think it's been super impactful to see that these people want to work and want to have the opportunity to really move through and create some stability that they may have never had and move away from what they knew to what they're going to learn. I think it's a great opportunity of continuing to leverage, and we as industry have to continue to push our hiring practices and our standards around what a second opportunity looks like. So I'd be curious, John or Antrell, anything you'd like to add in working with these populations on how do we continue to fold them back into the workforce?
Antrell may have more to say on this than I do because of the nature of the youth population we serve with. All I would say is that everything we do, we're inclusive of everybody, regardless of all the factors. Ironically, as recently as yesterday, I heard a story. One of the program models that we have, flagship to who we are, something called 3D eSchools by Junior Achievement. It's a very in-depth, comprehensive instructional model that we embed in existing four-year high schools, not charter schools, not private schools. We embed the model in existing schools. It's based on case method, and the 3DE cohort goes through a different academic experience than the other 2/3 of the kids in that building. As recently as yesterday, part of that, by the way, they start their own businesses, they engage in case methodology, case challenges, all this kind of stuff. I heard about a young man who's autistic, who happened to have been thriving and created his own business and had had a lot of success. So that's just a little microcosm, but we're open to everybody. And I think our schools are doing a great job. We're just so much more inclusive about who's on the platform and who's in the room than we used to be.
Yeah, and I'll say this. So I think to answer you the last question, why do you think that this population performs so well when they get an opportunity, is one, because they're self-driven. They're taking advantage and investing in their second chance. So I think that a lot of it comes from the individual. When they get a second chance, they want to do the best they can with it. But then the second part, and I don't want to miss Amber's point, is that the intentionality that the pipeline to train them is, like, once they leave, they're being a lot of, because we have the privilege of working with a few organizations that invest in training for second chance individuals. That the moment that they leave, and in many cases before they are released, that they are embedded in some training program to be able to develop a skill so that when they transition out, then they are involved in another training program. And then so every step along the way until they're self-sufficient, there's some support system investing in them. And to Amber's point, that this strategy can apply to people outside of returning citizens. So I think the intentionality of training program and having stackable credentials, and when you achieve one level of success in one program, you have something else to step into. And I think that as we continue, and not to change the subject, as we continue to evolve and the future of work starts to look a little different, these types of stackable credentials and training programs are going to be essential to train everybody as we continue to transition to a new work environment with new technology.
If I may, just to build off of that, you're absolutely right. And so I spoke a lot about the introduction to the program, but there's also that investment on the next level. So we're glad to have you here. Now, what are we going to do from here? You can choose to stay in the role that you're in. I mentioned that some of them are interviewing, but we also have tuition reimbursement to encourage them to go get further education. We have on-the-job training for maybe some clinical programs, but that's an excellent point of just, bringing them in is one thing, but
keeping them there
and continue to invest in them so that they can truly reach all of their potential.
Awesome. Well, let's switch gears a little bit. As we kind of talked about and heard earlier, we're really part of the gig economy now, and things are moving very quickly. We talked a little bit about the optionality of hey, while Georgia is the #1 state to do business for the past 12 years, that really generates a lot of opportunities for small businesses, entrepreneurship. So, Antrell, I want to ask you, small and diverse owned businesses are essential to Georgia's economy. So from your perspective, what policy or ecosystem changes would most help these businesses scale and create quality jobs?
Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. Again, starting with the elephant in the room. So we all know that there has been a lot happening on the federal level with the attempted elimination with the DBE, MBE, diversity and minority business enterprise designation. However, I think that there's still space and opportunity for business owners within the state to kind of step in to fill that gap. I've heard, I won't put her name out there, but a very notable person that mentioned that, you don't need a policy to do good, right? So if you understand that, as I began the panel, that equity and inclusion is a strategy, then you don't necessarily need a policy to tell you to do good, to do what's right, to do what's strategically and advantageous to your business. So I can just start there. But also if we're going to talk about policy, I think that, and especially on the state level, that a lot of focus is geared towards startups, and I think that we should definitely continue to invest in startups. But I know many people in this room also mean that I don't have a startup, but I still need access to capital. I still need to be able to have things that in the mid stages of their entrepreneurial journey, they're things that they also need once they advance from the startup stage. And so focusing on support services for mid-range, I'm losing the word, not startup, but beyond startup, being able to make sure that those companies have access to capital, have access to well-trained workforce, are things that we can continue to look at to make sure that folks that start a business don't go out of business 3 to 5 years in.
And anything to add just from an ecosystem change perspective?
So when it comes to entrepreneurship, that really isn't my professional array, but I will say from a personal standpoint that I fully support the local business owners, as should we. And so if you think about Thanksgiving coming up and Shop Small Business Saturday, I have convinced my husband that shopping is a sport, and so fully support that. But I think just investing in understanding and asking ourselves from a larger corporation, is there a small business that we can have and do business with? And then secondly, from the policy standpoint, you nailed it around, it is a strategy. Inclusion is the right thing to do. It's not something that we have to do.
Sure. John, anything to add?
Just real quick, not through the lens of policy, but more through the lens of culture. It's still surprising to me that not everybody, particularly young people, understand that. I mean, if I ask you guys who can own a business in America, your answer is anyone. That is not a common answer for young people, depending on where they come from and their background and what they've been exposed to. And so I mentioned the 3DE model that we embed in high schools over a 4-year journey. In that third year, students are given the opportunity required to start their own business and take a hand at that, and it culminates in a market day. So again, without getting into the weeds on what that looks like, in addition to policy, we have to just culturally make it clear that anybody can own a business in America, and the way you do that is to actually give them exposure to that and try their hand at it. I can assure you that young people who graduate from our 3DE schools, it is perfectly clear to them that they can own a business because they already have. Yeah.
And then I'll add one more thing, and I just got my thought. And then also, I think that we can also, as a state and also local governments, also encourage and incentivize supplier diversity as well. While we understand that that's the role that DBEs and those designations been, especially from the federal level, again, we don't necessarily need a policy to make people do right, but we also understand that incentives drives business. Businesses tend to react when there's something that they can get out of it. So if you, and this is not necessarily focusing on or companies of color, but it's just size. Like how much of your contracting is done with small businesses, and being able to have those statistics be transparent so that you can see who's actually doing the investment in small business, which one of these large companies who are out there actually seeking smaller businesses to do business with, to be able to help prop them up, to be able to bridge that gap so that the smaller businesses can grow and be sustained over time. And then also, and I think the reality that we will have to deal with, depending on what comes of this, the DBE conversation as a result of these executive orders, unfortunately, fortunately, we will have to start quantifying the value of diversity to be able to prove and make the business case as to, again, not just black and white, but small, large, any type of diversity, understanding like what are the financial metrics that shows why diversity is an equitable strategy rather than a charitable handout. So, we're there.
I love that. Yeah, we've got to have a complement of people and resources that goes hand in hand towards the growth and the opportunities. But it takes partners to do that, right? We all have to get in the boat together. So, John, I want to ask you one more thing about partnerships. So, how can partnerships between employers and organizations like Junior Achievement help strengthen Georgia's talent pipeline to ensure our young people are ready to succeed in the high-demand industries?
Yeah, so I work for an organization that is supported almost entirely by the private sector, including Georgia Power, by the way. Thank you. And that comes in the form of funding. It comes in the form of people engagement, all in the name of giving more access and exposure to young people about how businesses work. So remember, I talked about that blur between education and higher forms of education or post high school kinds of experiences. And I actually, I know we could be doing better, but I actually think in Georgia we're doing a really, really great job. Businesses are doing a great job of getting into schools, working with kids in a variety of ways, and we've talked about some of those. The university presidents were up here, talked at length about some of those. We would be benefiting from some of those. I tell you guys, don't take that for granted. I ran Junior Achievement in Oregon for 20 years before I came here, 2 Fortune 500 companies in the whole state, and it's just a very different ethos about business and the role that business plays in this work. And so I actually applaud what's happening. You guys are gonna think I'm a broken record after a while, but access, exposure builds social capital. And when older people out in the real world spend time with younger people in a variety of settings, that happens. I know the president's made a plea for more, and we probably need more, but I think we're doing a good job. We're operating from a place of strength in the state of Georgia.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to cater the question just a little bit differently for Antrell and Amber. So in terms of partnership, can you talk about the value for your organization? I think you all have touched down kind of like this, if the pathway to look like we have access to people, right, that are really willing to work, ready to go. We've got to put in some kind of education or training in the middle, whether that's formal, whether that's credentialing, whether that is just, more than just a YouTube video. But you also have industry at the table. So talk about like how these partnerships, like what does that mean for you and how does that impact the people you're bringing into your organization, but obviously the impact to your community?
So I spoke earlier about the community business organizations that we partner with and some of the soft skills that they assist with. What I didn't share around, just maybe to expound upon that, is to share about the interviewing skills, like something that may seem so simple, but individuals haven't been exposed to. And resume writing. How do I write a resume? How do I submit my resume? How do I complete an application? What are some things I need to make sure that I include from that perspective as far as the onboarding piece? And then I would say from the training perspectives, we have wonderful partners, 3 of which we heard from the earlier panel, as well as other institutions across the Georgia footprint that not just produce, again, the clinical clinicians that we need, but also the non-clinical professionals, in ensuring that we're having open discussions. So some of the things we heard from the first panel was absolutely what we're needing from an employer. Around, we need someone who is capable, ready, and experienced to show up and ready to go. We can't, that doesn't get created without that partnership with the local institutions. So having the dialogue to understand what are those necessary elements that we need those institutions to be investing into students, but then also once they've been onboarded, investing into them or continuing to invest in all teammates through our Career Pathways program. So there's various different opportunities, whether it's a non-clinical individual that maybe comes in through EVS. And in EVS, we have the tagline of "We Save Lives." And they know that they create this warm, healing environment that is clinically proven to help provide care to the patient. They take that concept, they take that experience, and they're able to see various areas throughout the organization, and that sparks an interest of, hey, you know, I was cleaning over in the surgical suite. How do I end up there? What does that look like? And again, we have to partner with our institutions, but also creating some on-the-job training where possible as well.
And I'll say that was great, and there's not much that I can add to that, but just from a more 1,000-foot level, which is kind of how we as consultants look, that creating environments to have the conversation, because a lot of times business owners or trainer don't know what they need until they have a conversation with someone. It sparks an idea, and then we can kind of bridge the gap from there. So making sure that we have convenings like this where you are sharing ideas and meeting new people to kind of spark thoughts of like, oh, this is an opportunity to collaborate that I did not have when I came here is vitally important. And then from there, you know, broadening that network of folks up is kind of creating an ecosystem where you have people contributing different resources and networks to make sure that, you know, we're no longer working in silos. I think that's another very important piece of that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, we're probably going to take some questions after this, but before we do that, for each of you, and we'll start with John, just any takeaways or actionable items you would like to leave the audience with on ways that we can create and work together to create these pathways to prosperities with populations we maybe historically haven't worked with.
Yeah, so I'm curious, how many people have ever been in a JA Discovery Center? Does that ring? Oh, great. That's
wow.
A little professional affirmation
Yes,
there. Thank you very
go.
much. So the original JA Discovery Center is in Building C of the Georgia World Congress Center downtown. In February, we will go live with our 7th JA Discovery Center in Morrow, down by the airport, in partnership with the Clayton County School System. And so with the opening of that, about 60% of the middle school students in the state will be getting the 2 programs that happen inside of a Discovery Center, JA BizTown and JA Finance Park. Scaling is always hard in any kind of business or organization. And so we've done a pretty good job of scaling, but there's more to do, and there's pockets of the state that are not getting those programs still. So if you're from those places and you want to talk, we could talk. And then also same with our 3DE schools model. In the next 10 years, we will scale that big time to all corners of the state. We are unabashed and unapologetic to say the purpose, the stated purpose of 3DE schools is to work with our school district partners to transform the way we do high school in America and in the state of Georgia, to make it more authentically connected to the places where young people will eventually be. And so that is a complex, high-impact model. We are moving the dial on chronic absenteeism. We are moving the dial on a variety of student achievement, graduation rates kind of things, school culture. So if anybody is interested in learning more about that, especially if there's school systems in the audience, I'd be happy to talk about that.
I would just say maybe 3 key things. Be intentional. Make it a point to have curiosity. So be curious about what are the other opportunities or whatever groups that you may not have as a diverse part of your organization, and also be supportive. Supportive of each other, supportive of your organization, but this is a great opportunity today that we've been allotted. Network, have conversations. I always say I don't steal things, but I do swipe things. You steal with integrity, pride, and enthusiasm, and give credit for those who come up with the ideas. But this is a great opportunity to network and really learn from each other. And I know we all want to be in the best in our fields, but we can't do that. We don't accomplish that without partnerships such as these.
Absolutely.
Can I say that she stole my answer?
Hey, R&D, rip off and duplicate.
Yeah, but no, I was really going to say the same thing. And I was, network. Look outside of your organization. Look at other opportunities and see who's doing great work in your backyard. See how you can connect with those folks. There are tons and tons and tons of resources that are out there to help with workforce development training, where people will actually pay for participants to come work at your companies, and they'll cover the cost. I work for a workforce development agency, and our biggest thing was how to get more money out of the door because people didn't know that we existed. Right. We had a workforce, we had money, but we needed the jobs to place them at, and so that should not be the case, right? You would think it would be the other way around because we don't have a workforce problem. We have a connectivity
Love
problem.
that.
And so if we figure out ways to connect and be creative in how we connect, I think that we will be able to continue to push because Georgia's already a great place to do business, great place to work, but there's a lot more that we can do once we start making those connections.
Yeah, I love that. It's not a people problem, it's a connection problem. I love that. Okay, we're gonna open it up to the audience for any questions. So if you have one, raise your hand and we'll bring a microphone to you.
Wow, there is people out here.
It's hard to see.
They're just really hungry.
I think so. It is us in between them and lunch. Okay. Well, can we give a round of applause to our panelists I think we've seen today? Operation Collaboration, Prosperity Follows.
Thank you.